Ladies and gents, Affliction Warlock, the badass of Mists of Pandaria. All those little Affliction Warlocks causing havoc on the raid meters. Yes, you know the ones. And I know many of you are interested to see how it's playing because it's not getting a lot of attention from anybody else. Yes, it seems to be the spec that everyone's avoiding, but we'll brave it. We'll brave it for now. Why is it being avoided? Currently, it's easily the most boring spec by a long, long way. Gonna explain that soon. I know you guys get upset when I bash a spec, right? As if it's my fault. It's not my fault. This is just how it is, okay? Get that, understand that. I don't mind you getting upset at me. That's okay. Also, it's very, 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 very weak in dungeons. That's kind of a tradition, but it's even weaker at the moment. If I was to describe a lot of things, I was really debating showing you dungeon footage. I've got to be honest. I was like 50-50. Should I do this on a dummy and then explain the problems, or should I show some dungeon stuff? But I think it's worth seeing. But yeah, see, it's very, very weak. The way the dotting works now with the changes we're going to talk about in a moment is you're fighting a lost battle before you even get out of bed in terms of trying to keep dots rolling in a nice manner. And believe me, I'm no stranger to a Warlock. I played a Warlock in Method for quite a while. Did well. I played Affliction for a lot of it as well. And I was good at it. Very, very good at it. Also played it in TBC on progression. I played a Warlock a lot of times. I also mained it in Wrath of the Lich King. Whew, I'm no stranger to this class. No stranger, but really, it just feels like a drag. It feels like a drag. Why? Why is the question? A couple of bugs going on at the moment, which is really sad. I brought Cataclysm along with me, which is the level 100 talent I chose for a couple of reasons. One, Demonic Servitude is keep your Doomguard out 100% of the time. Fine, I guess. You know, that's okay. I actually find that to be a particularly boring talent. Don't shoot me. I do. Demonic Servitude is just really boring once your Doomguard's out. I like, I know they've added some Command Demon stuff to the Doomguard and that now, but for this particular dungeon, I wanted to be able to interrupt, but Optical Blast is bugged on the Fell Hunter, which was a huge bummer because no one in this group could interrupt, which was a real downer. When it comes to Soulburn Haunt, I genuinely feel like we get so little shards, and using shards is a big fucking deal now, that there's no benefit really to having Soulburn Haunt as I see it right now. It's just one of those things that if you can use it, you must be in a pretty good situation. I've been very, very lucky with procs, so I didn't want to bring that along. But Cataclysm is bugged, unfortunately, as well. I used it a little bit for the damage. It does quite a lot of Shadow Flame damage. It's supposed to apply Agony to all your mobs, which would have been very cool, but it actually applies Corruption, which, as you guys will probably know if you played a Warlock, your Soulburn Seed of Corruption actually does the same thing. So that's a bit of a bummer as well. A little bit of a bummerino to go into there, so bear those things in mind. What's changed? The big change is the application of a cost now to Soul Swap. It now costs you 1 shard. What does that mean in real terms? Well, most of you know you'll start a fight as an Affliction Warlock with a Soulburn Soul Swap that applies your dots currently in Mists of Pandaria. That costs you 1 shard. In Warlords of Draenor, that's going to cost you 2 shards. You can probably already see the problem. If you don't get a proc nice and early, putting your dots on the boss at the beginning and then applying a haunt costs you 3 out of your 4 shards. Yeah. If you want to reapply your dots towards the end, not really happening unless you had a proc. And of course, Fell Flame is gone, so you can't extend those dots either. Bummerino. Big time bummerino. This also means when it comes to multi-dotting, it's very expensive. It's going to cost you a lot of shards to start swapping dots around, which makes it very difficult to keep up a nice multi-dotting like you'll be used to in Mists of Pandaria. Again, a big bummerino. I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes these class changes are just not great. Simply not great, and the Affliction Warlock is one that just fucking sucks right now. It really does. I can't help it. I can't change it, but that is just generally the situation. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Couple of problems. I'd like to just give feedback, I think, is the best way to go with this. I was so disheartened with the Affliction Warlock that I actually started I had to talk to the official Warlocks, talk to people like Sparko, talk to a couple of other guys. What are their feelings on it? And I won't use the words they used, but let's just say it's unpopular. A lot of people using it in their opinion just simply because it does a lot of damage, but it is in fact incredibly dull. I'm not exactly against that idea. Yes, it does reasonable damage. The damage is actually fine, but it's actually so boring to play. And one of the big reasons and the big problems with that, I think, is the Drain Soul Malefic Grasp mechanic. Why is it boring now and wasn't too bad in Mists of Pandaria? Dot snapshotting, right? dot snapshotting was a thing, and that meant that we weren't always going for full channels. In fact, we were monitoring procs. If you check the 5.4 guide that I did for the Affliction Warlock, it was entirely about trying to track procs, when to reapply dots, did this trinket go off, and all that kind of stuff. But that aspect of the class is now gone, which means we spend a lot of time channeling all the time. And frankly, channeling means you press the button and then for a significant amount of time, like 4 seconds, you can take your hands off the keyboard and do not a thing. Not a thing. You're just waiting for those dots. And then most of the time after those 4 seconds, you just press the channel again and then you wait for it to run out. You spend so much more time channeling than a Shadow Priest. It's actually pretty intense. One feedback I would like to give is just fuck channeling off completely. Let's have Shadow Bolt back. I liked maintaining improved Shadow Bolt and Shadow Embrace on the mobs when I was playing this full time. And it was a great little way to track things. It wasn't just about the dots. Yes, the Affliction Warlock is a dot spec. No one's denying that. No one's saying it's not the dot-based spec, but it is now so... It's 100% the dots. It's 100% the dots, which means when it comes to small kills, we just don't have any tools in the tool belt to actually deal with that situation. We just... What can we do? Channel Malefic Grasp? Oh, well, Drain Soul as it is now, which has been merged with Malefic Grasp. We could just channel that. And that doesn't really get a lot done, unfortunately. It doesn't get a lot done. We lack that ability to do something nice and quick. One of the reasons this spec is so dire in dungeons is we just don't have that ability to really put out a little bit of short-term burst, and that's kind of sad. It really is kind of sad, is that we can't benefit from that at all. Makes me a little bit upset, I've got to say. I would like to just get rid of that, and I'd like to see Drain Soul return to an execute ability. That was fine. It really would be fine. I'm talking kind of Wrath of the Lich King era where we had our dots, we had our haunts and all that kind of stuff. But when we got down to that execute phase, then we switched from Shadow Bolt over to Drain Life, but it was only for a short period of time. And plus it refreshed our shards. Drain Soul no longer refreshes our shards, which is really a bummer. Only if it kills something does it refresh a shard now, which was to fix... These are a lot of changes that have gone on in Warlords, which seem to have been trying to counter dot snapshotting. Removing the ability to Drain Soul to cheese shards in order to keep our mega powerful dots on is all well and good, but we don't have that problem anymore. So now it's just really boring. That's one of the problems. I would also like to see, and shoot me if you will, but this is kind of the feedback I've had with the guys this morning, is dots extended in duration. And then return to the Shadow Bolt as well. Let's weaken the dots a little bit and move it back to a potential for a little bit of nuke in there. Like, it's nothing wrong with having some Shadow Bolts and a little bit of nuke power. It's alright, as long as it's less DPS than having your dots up, that's perfectly fine. It's how it used to be TBC era. TBC era, we had Siphon Life, Corruption, Agony, and we had Unstable Affliction. We had 4 dots then, and Shadow Bolt. And you know what? It was cool. It was perfectly fine. The dots were a DPS increase by a long way, but they certainly weren't the be-all and end-all. About 60 to 70% of your damage will come from Shadow Bolt, and that was cool. We just don't see that anymore with this dot, the channeling stuff. I think the channeling stuff is a major, major bummer at the moment, and it really lets the spec down because it becomes so slow and so mundane, and realistically, you can take your hands off the keyboard for a majority of the amount of time. And that's a little bit sad. Another improvement maybe is to at least half the global cooldown on applying dots to make multi-dotting that little bit easier. Multi-dotting should be a nice fun aspect. It shouldn't be too powerful like we've seen in the past where multi-dotting was just crazy damage. I'm not asking for that, but what we often find now, especially with Soul Swap, a Soul Swap should certainly be a half global cooldown I think, is that when you're soul swapping off one global and then you're soul swapping back again another global, by the time you've done, say, 3 mobs, your dots are wearing off on the first target and then you're just back to normal casting and it becomes a real drag. It becomes a total drag. That's how it's looking right now, guys. A little quick look there. Not super quick, I know, but that's how I feel about it right now. I know some of you might be okay with this kind of relaxing playstyle and the fact that dot snapshotting is gone. Maybe you can be laid back. I'm not here to tell you what is a good way to play or what you should find fun. If you find it fun, cool. But it is being called, and, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, it's being called a little bit of the retard spec because it's difficult to go wrong with. It's clunky. It's messy, and it's boring at the same time. It's just all kinds of negativities come out of it. I tried to find some redeeming factors to it. Like I say, this is a spec I very much enjoyed for a very, very long time. And at the moment, I'm just not getting it. I'm just not getting it at all. There's your quick look at Affliction, guys. Take it easy. Bye.